All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling a big one, at least for anyone trying to learn German. The dative case.
Ooh, yeah. The dative. That's a fun one.
I know you're being sarcastic, right? It's definitely one of those grammar concepts that can really trip people up.
Oh, sure. Especially for us English speakers.
We found some sources that go deep on this, and they're all about figuring out how to tell when you need dative versus accusative.
Which I'm sure we all remember is for the direct object, right? Like the thing being acted upon.
Right. But what makes this deep dive especially interesting is that we're focusing on sentences with two objects.
Oh, so now we've got two nouns potentially vying for that dative spot. Sounds tricky.
It can be, but our sources actually point to a pretty helpful pattern when it comes to dative.
Oh, do tell.
So picture this. You've got a German sentence, and it's got two objects, right? Often, one of those objects is going to be a person, and the other is going to be a thing.
Okay, I'm following so far.
Well, the source points out that it's the person who usually gets the dative case.
Interesting. So, like, if I give you a book, you would be in the dative, and book would be accusative.
Yeah, exactly. And that makes sense if you think about it, because the dative is all about indicating the indirect object, right? The person to whom something is being done.
Right, like in English we'd say to or for someone, so I guess it's not always super different from English grammar in that sense.
Yeah, you're right. There are some parallels. But of course, German has to be German and throw in some curveballs too.
Oh, I'm sure there are exceptions. What about, like, if the person is the one doing the action, not receiving it, would they still be dative?
You're hitting on a key point there. I mean, it's true that this person-thing distinction is pretty common because a lot of grammar does reflect how things work in the real world.
Yeah, it's like grammar is mimicking real life.
Exactly. But as with anything in language, there are going to be some exceptions.
Oh yeah, languages always love to have exceptions. So how do we navigate that?
Well, the sources emphasize that it's not just about who's doing what. It's more about that underlying relationship implied by the verb.
So you're saying it's not surface level?
Exactly. It goes deeper than that.
Yeah.
And that's where truly understanding the dative case really comes into play.
Makes sense. So to really make this all click, could we break down an example sentence? See the dative in action.
Absolutely. That's a great idea.
All right, so let's look at this one. Der Mann gibt dem Kind einen Ball. That means the man gives the child a ball.
Okay, see a dem in there. Is that our dative clue?
You got it. That dem is the masculine dative article. It's basically waving a flag saying, hey, this noun's in the dative case.
So dem kein Child is our dative object here, right? The one receiving the ball.
Right. And then einen Ball, a ball, is the accusative object, the thing being given.
Ah, okay. So the word order is also telling us something here, isn't it? We've got the subject, then the dative object, then the accusative object.
You're right. Word order plays a huge role in German. And yeah, in this case, having that dative object right after the verb is a pretty common pattern.
It's like solving a little puzzle.
Totally. And mastering those puzzle pieces is what makes German so satisfying. It might be tough at first, but once you get it.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how all these little pieces fit together. And I know, like, if I go back to that time I tried ordering food in Berlin,
Oh, no.
I butchered the cases,
Yeah.
like totally mixed up the dative and accusative and ended up asking for something totally different.
Oh, I've been there. It can be pretty embarrassing, but honestly, those mistakes are how we learn.
Yeah, for sure. It's like you can memorize vocab all day long, but if you don't know how to actually use it in a sentence...
You're not really speaking the language, are you?
Exactly. And I think that's a really important point for anyone listening who might be struggling with grammar. It's not just about memorizing rules, it's about understanding how those rules function in real communication.
Absolutely. And the dative case is a perfect example of that.
Okay, so to recap what we've covered today, if you see a German sentence with two objects, take a look and see if you've got a person and a thing. Odds are that person is hanging out in the dative case, and the thing is accusative.
Exactly. And that's a great starting point. But as we've talked about...
Yeah, there are exceptions, and those are where things get really interesting.
Absolutely. And that's something to keep in mind because word order in German can really change things up depending on the case.
Now that you mentioned word order, I'm thinking, does the dative case ever impact the order of those objects? Like, could they flip positions?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. And the answer is yes, absolutely. The dative can definitely shake up the word order in a German sentence, but that's a whole other deep dive. We could spend hours talking about how word order, case, and meaning all interact.
I guess that's for another time. But for now, listeners, I hope this has given you a better grasp of the dative case and how it works with other parts of German grammar.
And hopefully it's inspired some curiosity about the complexities and beauty of the German language.
Yeah, exactly. Until next time.